Hello students! How are you doing? My name is Anna and I'll be your teacher today. I will begin by asking you a little question. Have you ever given someone advice? Do you know what advice means? Let me recall you what it is, okay? Advice is an opinion offered by someone else regarding a specific situation. For instance, spoiler alert, I can tell you that you should pay attention to this lesson, or you should take notes in your notebook. Okay, you see, I'm giving you my opinion and you can take my advice or not. Kidding, guys, you really should pay attention today. So, are you good at giving advice? Have you ever given someone the wrong advice? Or have you ever received the wrong advice? Maybe have you ignored the advice of another person only to have regretted it later? For instance, when your mom tells you that you should study for your test with time and you don't do it? Okay, so follow me by watching the next video, okay?
Your opinion, you filthy little mudblood. She'll pay for that one, Malfoy. Eat slugs!
You okay, Ron? Say something! Wow! Can you turn it around, Harry?
No, Colin, get out of the way.
Let's take him to Hagrid.
He'll know what to do.
So now guys, let's describe what happened again. Ron got angry and he treated or fought Draco because he was bullying his friend. But something went wrong, right? And he ended puking a slurm of worms. Puking is vomiting or throwing up something, okay guys? So, puking worms, so disgusting. Can you imagine it? He should have a terrible stomachache with his stomach so full of worms. And did you pay attention to what Harry said at the end? Yes, he told them that they should see Hagrid to help Ron. Okay, so how could we help him, right? What is a good advice in this sort of situation? So, Ron should drink a lot of water. Drink a lot of water, right? He also should clean his mouth or brush his teeth. And finally, Ron should drink a hot soup because of his stomachache. So, as you probably have guessed, today we will talk about giving advice. Isn't that cool? I'm really excited myself. Are you guys? You should, because it's something really important to learn. Anyway, it can be tricky in some situations or complicated, so I will describe it as simple as possible to help you use it correctly. Let's start by stating what will be the objectives and contents of today's class. During this lesson, you will learn about how to give an advice in different situations, especially about health problems, using the modal verb should. Remember that. Also, we will talk a little bit about illness and common symptoms. And super important, remember to have your material at hand, your notebook, to take notes and pay attention. Last but not least, don't forget to have fun. I really hope that by the end of the video, you will have a better idea about how to give advice. Having said that, let's get started. Giving advice. How to do it? So, we use should to talk about obligations, things that are necessary to do, or to give advice about things that are considered good ideas. Remember, good ideas. It can be used in its affirmative form or its negative form. So let's check the affirmative first, okay? So, do you know my friend here? He's Cedric Diggory, and he's having a terrible pain in his head or headache. When your head is hurting, it is called headache, okay? It is clear, guys? So, Last night, he passed the whole night awake, studying for an exam of potions. And now he feels dizzy and he can't concentrate in anything. So he's asking for the nurse for help. Okay, so let's read the situation together, okay? So Cedric says, I have a terrible headache and an ache all over. What should I do? And the nurse answered, you should take an aspirin. You should, okay? And stay in bed for the rest of the day. You see, he should, the modal verb, do something to get better. Perfect. So now let's look at the way we formed this sort of sentence. So the general affirmative structure goes like this. Subject plus should plus infinitive plus the rest of the sentence. For instance, can't you see what Draco Malfoy is doing? He's eating a really big sandwich and looks like he doesn't want to stop, right? So let's read together. Draco said, so yummy. And Hermione answers, you should stop eating. You should stop eating so much fast food or you will get overweight or fat. Perhaps you should eat more fruits and vegetables. So she thought that it was a good idea that Draco stop eating fast food. She recommended him to eat fruits and vegetables instead, like this apple here. So, should plus infinitive verb, okay? Keep in mind that verb is never conjugated or used in any other tense. So, it is always in the infinitive form. So that is the general form for the affirmative use of the modal verb should. Now, let's move to the negative form. Okay, kids, now moving on, we use shouldn't when we want to say that something is a bad idea. So you express your opinions against something, okay? The general negative form is subject plus should plus not plus infinitive plus the rest of the sentence. Looks pretty easy, right? You just have to add a not after should and that's it. So, do you see what Ron and Harry are doing here? Ron is sweating and his body feels really hot and weak. And Harry is checking his temperature with his hand. Okay, so let's read what's happening. Harry says, you have a cold, Ron. You shouldn't eat anything until the fever goes down. You shouldn't eat. So Harry's telling him that it will be a wrong idea to eat while he has a fever. Clear? Should plus not plus the complement. Okay, so let's see our friends here. Fred is planning a new prank with his brother George, but Ginny heard them and stopped them. So let's read together. Fred says, tomorrow we are going to explode the bomb in Miss Umbridge's office. And Ginny answered, stop! You shouldn't do that. She will punish you. Again, it is clear? She's advising them to not explode their teacher's office because it is wrong and there will be bad consequence. So they shouldn't or they should not do the action. Okay? Remember that you can use the long form, I mean should not, in some cases, like to express more emphasis in your opposition, but the short form is more common. So now let's talk about some common incorrect uses. Okay, kids, so common incorrect uses. For instance, the first one, I think you shouldn't stay here. Okay, in common, we don't use in English a shouldn't after I think. In those cases, the correct way to say it will be, I don't think you should stay here, or I think you should leave. Okay, and why? Because it is more natural to put the negative form early in the sentence or at the first part. So another incorrect use is you should to sleep more hours. To sleep. Here, remember that the general form to give advice with should is should plus infinitive verb. And that's it. No other complement is needed. So to is not needed. The correct form here will be you should sleep more hours. And the last one is, should we play video games before a test? Okay, so any one of you guys, why do you think that the last sentence is wrong? Can someone help me? Maybe you, George? Can you help me?
Okay, miss. Is it because the verb is not infinitive?
Okay, awesome, George. You noticed the difference. We said that the verb for both forms, positive and negative, has to be in its affirmative form. So the correct sentence will be, should we play games before a test? Okay, so now I will ask some of you to give me some examples of what we just saw. Maybe you, Luna? Can you tell me a piece of advice? Any random advice you want to tell us, okay?
Okay, I should follow the rules or I will get expelled.
Nice work, that was great. Remember that should can be used in informal or formal situations because it is really common. But when you are in a more formal situation like this one, you can also use the modal verb ought to, which has a similar meaning to should. For instance, you ought to follow the school rules or you will get expelled. Now, is everything clear so far? Anyone has a doubt?
No, miss. I want to ask if should is always used for giving recommendations.
Oh, okay, Draco, that's an awesome question. There are also other uses for the modal verb should, so it could be not immediately an advice. One is when you're given a prediction about the future. So let's see this example. All my family took the medicine. Then we should be safe. So how do we know that this is a prediction and not advice? Because we focus on the context. It is important that you pay attention to the whole meaning of the sentence. So in this case, for instance, we were making a guess about the future. It is clearer now? I'm going to check it, okay? Maybe you, Fred, can you tell the class another example of this different use of should? When is it a prediction?
Sure, miss. Maybe the package I order should be on its way.
Okay, that's perfect, Fred. You did it incredibly. Did you all get it, kids? The context was telling us that he thinks that there is a good chance in the future that something will happen. In this specific case, the arrival of his package. So now let's have some real practice. Don't give up, kids. Hang in there with me. We're almost done. Just one little more exercise and we will be over. So let's do a little role play, okay? Now you're a teacher and some students want your advice. They want to ask you what they should or shouldn't do when they go back to Howard's or their school. I'll give you a couple of minutes to answer and then we will check together, okay? So, are you guys ready? Let's check, okay? Okay, guys, so now I will ask someone randomly and then I'll read some other answers. Okay, so Jenny, please tell me your advice.
Of course, miss. My advice is that they shouldn't hug their friends.
Okay, that was beautiful, Jenny. Good advice. They should keep a distance from their classmates, and that's for sure. Now let's read some other answers, okay? So the first one is they should cough in their elbows. Perfect, guys. The second one is they should frequently wash their hands. Awesome. That's a great advice, actually. And the last one says they should always wear their face mask. Okay, the last one has a tiny little bit error. We just talked about it. Yes? So the verb is not in its infinitive form. So it should be, they should always wear their face mask. Did you notice? Wear and wearing. The right form is wear. So how did you do it? I think you did it great. And you guys showed me that you learned. Your recommendations were really useful, and I'm sure that you will follow them when you go back to your schools. Now, to finish today's lesson, let's resume all what we saw today. We learned to give advice using the modal verb should. It could be used in its affirmative form or in its negative form. So should before the subject and after the infinitive verb. Okay? We also learned that should is really common and it could be replaced in some formal situations by ought to. Remember, you ought to watch this video till the end, okay? We also said that should can also be used for guesses about the future. So we have to pay close attention to what the sentence is referring to. And finally, we learned that all of that talking about some illness and symptoms, like having a cold or a fever. And that was it. Thank you guys for your attention and joining today's lesson. I really had a great time and I hope you too. Please be careful and take care of yourself. Having said that, see you next class, kids.